Hello, I'm Todd Hall, President and CEO of TruLiant. As we mark our 70th anniversary in 2022, we reflect on a rich history that would not be possible without the support of the great city of Winston-Salem. From our humble beginnings in 1952 to the present, where we will soon serve over 300,000 members, hire our 1,000th employee, and exceed $4 billion in assets, to a future poised for continued growth. I am proud of the work we are doing together. TruLiant is grateful for and remains committed to Winston-Salem and all of Forsyth County.
Welcome to the Greater Conversations podcast. I'm Deetra Miller, the Director of Member Relations and Engagement at Greater Winston-Salem, Inc. We'll use this platform to showcase our local businesses, our community, and their stories. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the show. I am so excited to welcome with us today Dr. Anna Nichols with Nichols Hearing Audiology. Good morning.
Good morning, and thank you for having me. I'm excited to be on here and just to chat a little bit about what we do, and we're excited to be a part of the Winston-Salem greater community and a new business in Winston.
Well, we are very excited that you're here in Winston. And you know what? I want to start off with something that we were talking a little earlier that I had no idea about. So I want people to know a little bit about who you are as a person before we dive into the heart of what you do.
Oh, that's great, because I'll tell you, when I was thinking about opening the business last fall, there was a lot of considerations, and there was a lot of personal considerations. I have a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old little boy, so 2 boys. And I felt I was kind of feeling like I didn't have a great balance in life. And I was stretched pretty thin, and I had a rising kindergartner, so it was a big year. And I wanted something that I could continue to do what I love and continue to help people, but also be involved with my kids and be able to be home for them a little bit more and let them do more activities. And so I was trying to find more balance, and I decided to go out on my own and to create a private practice that was patient-centered and allowed me to continue to help people here and work with technology, but also be home more and have more balance. And so it has been wonderful. You always take this leap of faith and you wonder, is it the right decision?
Yes.
But thankfully, even about a month in, I had no regrets. And I've got a great team that really helps me with the balance. But we spend a lot of time at work, but our goal is to do our job and do it well. But then to get home, to enjoy life. And nobody ever said they wished they worked more. No one. So, you at the end of the day, you want to be able to be with your family and be with your kids, and that was the goal of this, and it's been perfect. It's worked out really well. My husband is a private practice owner as well.
Really?
He is an attorney in Stokes County, and so we kind of live, eat, breathe small business, and the goal was for us to both be able to do that, to have more independence and to be able to work for our community. And it's been wonderful.
That is wonderful. When a lot of people think about starting their own business, balance isn't usually top of mind, right? Because they know they have to put so much work, so much effort, so many hours into it, and they may be doing it all themselves. How did you go into it thinking, okay, I'm going to do something that I love, hearing and audiology, and I'm going to have balance. I'm going to be able to have fun with my kids and my husband, who's also an entrepreneur.
So that's really interesting. So when I first started out, thankfully I have been working in this community as an audiologist for 10 years.
Okay.
So I have had a really great following of my current patients. So immediately I said, anyone that was previously a patient of mine is welcome. And so I thankfully had a very big loyal group that came with me. And so I wasn't necessarily starting ground up with that.
That's
and
wonderful.
So that helped. And then also, I think it's just one of those things that sometimes I don't even know how it's worked out as well as it has. But I have a great team. I have a really wonderful team that I had worked with previously. So there wasn't a huge learning curve. And thankfully, my team, they were willing to take the leap with me, which I don't take for granted. Because now I look back and I think, they must have been pretty scared too. They were like, I'm not quite sure what she's doing, but, and so I have a good team, and that's really allowed the growth to happen pretty quickly. And for us to all work together on the same page with, kind of our goals. And this had been something that had been brewing in my head for a while.
Really?
I did. I knew I wanted to work for myself, and I knew I wanted to be in private practice. And I've had the hospital experience, and I've been in the big setting, and I just feel like that doesn't give people, especially hearing aid users, what they need. You need a personalized approach, and you really need to get to know the person, because you're working with someone who is having trouble communicating, and it takes time to get to know this person and find out what trouble they're having and where we need to work on it. And so that private practice setting has just kind of always been in the back of my mind that this is something I want to create. And so it's amazing how quickly it all happened. Once I decided, it happened in about a month.
Oh, wow.
It happened
That
quick.
was really quickly.
It happened very quick. And it was when my kindergartner started school and said, I'll never get picked up in carpool line, will I? And I quit my job the next week.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it happened. And I've had a lot of support from family and friends and encouragement. And so I think it's kind of been a group effort.
Wow. Have you always been interested in hearing, or what was your goal?
So I think I kind of fell into it, like we sometimes do in things. In school, I was studying speech therapy, and I just felt like it wasn't a great match for me. I wanted to work with patients long term.
Okay.
So in speech therapy, they get discharged. So in speech therapy, they graduate and they move on. And in audiology, I see people long term. And so I have patients I've seen for 10 years.
Wow.
And that building of that relationship and that long-term relationship was something that I've really enjoyed. And then I get to work with fun technology. Technology in 10 years has come a long ways in hearing aids. And so we do a lot of techie things that are fun.
Oh my gosh. And we're gonna jump into that, but I want to go back to something that you mentioned earlier, because hearing is all about communication. And I happen to be friends, and so is our producer Tim, with someone who has a master's in psychology that's also a body language expert. And one of the things she always points out when you're looking at people and trying to read them and communicate with them is their baseline. And I notice you use that term when it comes to hearing. Talk about the baseline with hearing.
So when we're talking about hearing and communicating and the baseline, so if someone is having trouble communicating because of a hearing loss, they are missing pieces of the conversation. And they're trying to fill the gaps in. And sometimes they do a good job, and other times they get lost really quickly. And communicating is so essential to everything that we do in life. And if you think about the times that you've had a miscommunication and you've missed the punchline, or you've agreed to something that you did not want to agree to, it can make you feel frustrated. It can make you feel bad about yourself. It can even be isolating. And so when we're working with people, we're working with high emotions. And we're working with not only correcting their hearing and kind of fixing the pieces that are broken of their hearing, but we're also working on their emotional point.
Wow.
And working to improve their self-confidence and to make them feel better about themselves. Because we all want to be good communicators. We all want to feel like we can communicate with our family and our friends well. And a lot of my patients will come in and say, I can't hear my grandchildren. And a 7 or 8 year old is not going to repeat themselves. They just kind of move on. And so they are feeling bad that they're not connecting and that they're missing that connection with their family. And that can come with high emotions. That really can. And that's something we really don't take for granted, is that when people open up to us about what they're experiencing and how they're feeling, we want to be able to be sensitive about it, but also provide a solution to where they can feel more engaged and they can feel better about themselves. And we all want to feel like we are doing as good as we can, and that we're as present as we can be with our family and our friends. And that missed communication can take a toll on you over time. It really can.
They become very frustrated.
Very frustrated,
Absolutely. Absolutely. These days you hear a lot about keeping yourself healthy. Yes. And a lot of people are talking about weight loss or eating the right way, things of that nature, or emotional health. You mentioned balance earlier.
Yes.
A lot of times you don't hear people focusing on hearing health.
You're exactly right. It kind of gets pushed under the rug.
Yeah.
And hearing is one of those things that doesn't happen suddenly. It's a gradual loss. And so you don't just wake up one day and you can't hear. It's something that happens slowly over time, and you can be predisposed to it with your genetics. You can have worked around noise. Certain medications can cause hearing loss. And so these are all things that kind of snowball into changing hearing and a decline in your hearing. And as we age, we want to age gracefully and healthy. We want to be healthy because we have an entire generation of folks that are aging and they are active. They are active, they are engaged, they are social, and we want to maintain that, because if we don't continue to stay active and engaged, there's a real rapid decline in our health and in our mental health. And untreated hearing loss has been really closely linked to dementia, which we all really want to prevent. And it's because if you can't hear, you're less engaged, you're more isolated, you tend to pull away, and you're not as aware of things around you. And that can affect your memory and your mental decline severely. And we've seen pretty good studies over the years from Johns Hopkins that have really linked that long-term hearing loss and not being treated to dementia. So,
oh my goodness.
Yes. So we really want to prevent that. And we can prevent that by, if there's hearing loss, correcting it. And the hearing devices now, the technology is wonderful, and people enjoy them. They're Bluetooth, they're rechargeable,
wow.
And a lot of people walk around with things on their ears. These are really discreet. They're not like our grandparents' hearing aids. They don't make that awful noise. They're not huge. They have come a long ways, and the acceptance rate is much better than it was even 5 years ago. People adapt quickly if they start early. And that early intervention, as we know with health, is key. If we see a problem, we're much better off fixing it sooner than later.
You talk about the devices being so much better than they were back in the olden days, 10 years ago. I think I heard you mention one time that the technology is so amazing that you can help a patient that's not even at the same physical location that you're in.
We can. So we can remote in, and
Wow.
it's similar to FaceTime. And we can remote in, we can do adjustments, doesn't matter where they are. As long as they have cell service, we can hop onto their phone and we can do a live adjustment on their hearing aid.
That's
we also
amazing.
have translating on the hearing aids. So if we've got a traveler, and if we've got a traveler, they can actually hit a translate button on their phone and it will translate in their ears, which is very cool.
That is amazing.
And then we have a fall alert. So if your mom is wearing hearing aids and she's independent and lives alone, but you have some concerns about her falling when she's wearing her hearing aids, if she happens to have a fall, what will happen is her phone will text the emergency contact, and if the emergency contact does not respond within a certain amount of time, it will automatically call 911. So the goal is to keep people independent. And we all know that living at home, staying independent is the goal. And so if we can give them another key factor to help them feel independent and to help the kids feel better about mom living alone, then that's really, really important, because we know that independence of driving, living alone is so important to the aging population.
That is exciting.
Yes,
I love
it's
that.
great. We've got a lot of really great technology that is embedded in these hearing aids. So not only does the hearing aid help you hear better, it helps your balance, because the balance and the hearing organ are connected. It can help tinnitus. So if you have that buzzing or ringing noise in your ears, it will actually mask it. And
so it's not tinnitus, it's tinnitus?
It's either or. It's either the English version or the British version. Tinnitus or tinnitus, it's kind of interchangeable.
Okay.
So hearing aids kind of have a lot more features than they used to, and people use them for a multitude of reasons. I see a lot of veterans that have tinnitus, and they wear hearing aids to help cover the tinnitus up.
Okay.
So
You can continue to say tinnitus.
I kind of use it interchangeably back and forth, but hearing aids can really improve lives, and they are something that need to be personalized, and the care is important with them, and we see our patients back often. Once you get hearing aids, you're gonna see us back.
Yes.
You're gonna see us at least every 6 months after you get hearing aids.
We talked about an older generation grasping the idea of using hearing aids so they can be more independent. Let's roll it back a bit. What about younger people? At what age do you recommend children, teenagers, young adults see an audiologist?
So initially, a baby has a hearing evaluation before they leave the hospital. So before they leave the hospital, they'll have a brain response test that will rule out hearing loss. And then when they start kindergarten, they will have a hearing screening prior to kindergarten. So we've got those two evaluations early in life, and if they don't pass either one, then we'll follow up. So after kindergarten, usually the risk of hearing loss in childhood is low. So children won't be evaluated unless there's a problem at that point. If there's a speech delay, or if the family feels like they're having trouble, then they'll evaluate their hearing. As far as adults go, so I would love to see more adults get their hearing checked early on in life. If you have a family history, sooner than later, but even people in their early 30s need to get their hearing checked. And it's recommended over the age of 50 for you to have a hearing test and to have a baseline. A baseline is great, because then we can say 5 years down the road, okay, we've stayed stable or we've seen a shift, and we can compare it. And so I would say over the age of 50, if you've not had a hearing test, come get a hearing test. If you're noticing anything, so if you notice that you're having more trouble hearing in groups or in noise, then it's time for a hearing test, because that's one of the first scenarios where people really notice trouble in their hearing, is when they're in a crowd. And when there's background noise, so that they can't hear as clearly as they used to be able to. So,
well, speaking of crowds and background noises, we've got these things you mentioned earlier, AirPods, and people still go to concerts. Well, we can do that now because, yay, COVID's kind of sort of going away. But what do you recommend for people to do on a daily basis to make sure they're protecting their hearing?
So that's a great question, because we are seeing a generation that is plugged in. AirPods, headphones, and something inside of the ear constantly. And we need to limit the volume. If somebody next to you can hear your music, it's too loud. And because over time, cumulatively, you can have hearing loss that occurs from just a constant stimulation. And so we need to lower the level. We need to be more cautious, because once it's gone, it's gone. Hearing is not one of those things that's going to come back. Can't take a pill, can't take medicine to get it to come back.
No surgeries.
No surgeries to get it to come back. So we need to protect our ears with everything we have, and really, really think about it when we've got music in our ears, or a podcast, or an audiobook, and think about the level that we've got, because we can keep it from getting worse.
That's perfect. All right, let's go back to kids for a moment. Talk about what you're doing now with pediatrics.
So we are just getting started into pediatrics, and there is a huge need in pediatrics right now for auditory processing testing. So there are lots and lots of kids that have trouble learning in the conventional, traditional way. And it has to do with the pathway from the ear to the brain. And it has to do with things, they hear correctly, but things getting lost along that pathway. And so they'll read the word bird, and it'll just take a little longer for it to get up to their brain and for them to realize what they're hearing. And it is treatable with therapy, but this is the reason why you see a lot of kids struggle learning how to read. And
wow.
so what this testing does is you can do an auditory processing evaluation, and you can determine if this is the struggle that the child has. And then we can help them to set up accommodations in school, and to give them a little extra time, for test taking, to move them to the front of the classroom, to get the signal to noise ratio lower. So the level of the teacher's voice for these kids needs to be a little higher than the background noise. And so working with schools to get these kids all the accommodations that they need so that they are going to be more successful. And there's a huge need in our community for this, and there's a huge need to work with the school systems and to tell them that this is a problem and that these kids just need a little bit more help. So that's something that we have been wanting to do, and we are going to start doing that in the next month, which is exciting. And so I would say traditionally we're an adult practice, but things are changing, and we have some growth that we're excited about. And as a parent, that kind of hits home for me as a parent. And that's something that with this practice I wanted to provide. I wanted to be able to provide a resource to parents, and to be able to talk to the schools about the importance of also the listening environment, and how important it is in a classroom to have good acoustics and to have sound that these children are going to be able to respond to. And if you think about it, you put in a lot more work in an environment where it's hard to hear. You have to put in a lot more listening effort if the environment is not good. And so we need to really focus on creating a good listening environment that is going to allow these children to learn easily, and make it as easy as we can for them, because it's hard these days in school, and the requirements are getting harder. And reading in kindergarten, I mean, that's hard.
For sure.
That's hard.
For sure. Oh my goodness. Now I'm going to throw in one more question here. I was going to ask about barriers of any type that you've noticed for some people to get the hearing assistance that they need.
Oh, that's a great question. So one of the biggest barriers is insurance. Insurance does really not recognize the need for hearing aids, which is really frustrating. So we are in network with all insurance plans, and we will file and work with the insurance company to try to take some of that frustration away. But in general, insurance companies just don't have as much awareness about the need for good hearing aids and for hearing aids to be personalized and fit well. And so we have gotten a network, and we will try to navigate that and help you with that. Emily is wonderful at that. That's one of her biggest strong points is navigating insurance and talking to the companies.
That's awesome. Emily is one of your amazing teammates,
She
as well
is.
as Mary.
Mary is wonderful too. Mary is the first person you talk to. So Mary is she's the first person you see when you walk in. She's the person you usually will talk to on the phone. She has a wonderful ability to comfort people. Because when people call, there's a little anxiousness involved in what happens next, and do I have a hearing problem? Do I need to get hearing aids? And so she's really wonderful at comforting people and just kind of assuring them, which is a wonderful spot for her. That means she's in the perfect role.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah. Well, if anyone wants to speak with Mary about scheduling an appointment to see you, what do they need to do?
So the best thing to do is to give us a call. Our number is 336-842-3437, or check our website out. So our website is hearwelllivewellnc.com, because when you hear well, you live well.
I love that.
Thanks.
And you're on social media as well?
We're on Instagram and Facebook as well, just as Nichols Hearing and Audiology.
That's awesome. Yeah. Did we touch on everything you wanted to share
think so.
today?
Yeah, I think this was great, Deetra.
Fantastic. Well, Anna, thank you so much for being
so
here.
Fun. I was excited to
go.
Go.
This is great. Yeah. And I'll probably be calling Mary myself.
You need to. You guys can both come in and see us.
That sounds good. And Tim will probably come by simply to get ready for his trip to Paris.
Yeah. Tim is in dire need of some hearing attention.
Well, that's what we can take care of, Tim. Well, thank you guys both.
Thank you so much.
Good to see you. Good to see you, Tim.
Take care.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone, for listening. Until next time. We know you enjoyed this podcast today, so join us for the next episode of Greater Conversations. By the way, you can follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Be sure to smash that subscribe button. Also, be sure to visit our website at winstonsalem.com. The views and opinions stated in this podcast are solely those of the contributors and not necessarily those of our sponsors, distributors, or hosting companies. This podcast is copyrighted and cannot be reproduced without expressed written consent of Greater Winston-Salem, Inc. or your toast.